KNYOLP, streaming on the web at knyo.org. It's now time for the pregame show of what I like to call, it's the Wagner Variety Show from 6 to 9 officially. But those that are in the know of KNYO, know that Joe Kidd likes to log on at 5 o'clock typically. And sometimes I have special guests in the studio. By the way, a little forecast. Next Wednesday, if all goes right, I'm going to have Matthew Westmoreland coming back in for his second pass. Actually, it'll be his third time in the studio playing acoustic music, mostly originals. I might get him to play some Johnny Cash. We'll see. And he's a barrel of fun. He's going to be opening up a gig at the Inglenook Community Center on the 26th. And so I'll be really happy to have him in the studio again. Otherwise, though, I have a special guest this evening, and I'm going to start my news bumper right now. KNYO-LP Fort Bragg. Here we go. All right, well, Fort Bragg, USA, another episode of that introductory hour to the Wagner Variety Show where I get crazy. I know last time we had a pretty interesting time when I had two guys in here. It was a little radical.
Not counting multiple personalities.
All right, well, you guys heard that voice. I have Scott Peterson in here again, and the history I've had with Scott Peterson on my radio show is talking about local issues with finance and balancing when it comes to nonprofits and what really amounts to public information. So, Fort Bragg, USA, here we are. Welcome back, Scott.
Thanks, Joe.
We're here again. So, let me start with a question. When did you first get into finding the target-rich environment, which is a term you tend to use about nonprofits financially, I guess?
It started with an email that I got from a friend of mine, Mitch Clogg in Mendocino, who had picked something up off the local listserv. And
the MC industry.
Yeah, exactly. And it was about the senior center because there had just been this mass resignation at the senior center in Fort Bragg.
Okay. And what year was that?
God, that was, I think, 12.
Okay, so it's been a while.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
And there was somebody was giving advice. It was Charlene McAllister was giving somebody advice. And it's like, if anybody should not give advice, it's Charlene McAllister.
Okay.
And she was saying to Sakina Bush, who is Charles Bush, the director of the senior center.
Sure.
His wife or SO. That all you needed to run a good nonprofit were good bylaws.
Okay.
And that's like saying, well, all you need is wet water or air you can breathe. And it's like my head exploded. I just went, oh my God, where has this woman been and what has she done? There has to be a trail that wouldn't be that easy to spot, like a buffalo trail in Dancing with Wolves, like this giant swath. And sure enough. I look at the hospital foundation, and there it is. Just huge discrepancies, lots of questionable transactions. Wine song, yes, and that was my introduction to nonprofit nonsense.
So it kind of started with Mendocino Coast District Hospital and Senior Center and Wine Song.
Yeah.
Okay,
and then I thought, well, it can't be like this everywhere, and so I started looking at other nonprofits, and it was. The parable I used, if you've ever been hiking,
sure.
There's a place in the Trinities called Grizzly Meadows, and to get to Grizzly Meadows, you have to hike through this little creekside trail called Rattlesnake Creek is the name of the creek, right? And there's a lot of ferns and bushes, a kind of a narrow trail.
Places for rattlesnakes to jump out.
Right, and
got its name from somewhere, right?
And you think, well, it's called Rattlesnake Creek, but it's not really full of rattlesnakes. And so when you hike, you bring sandals so that when you're done with the end of the day hike, you get your hiking boots off, get your sandals on, get your fishing rod, and go down fishing in the creek.
Okay.
So I was walking along this creek, and I just thought, I wonder what's under this leaf. Rattlesnake. That's why they called it Rattlesnake Creek. And so the nonprofits in Mendocino County, it's like Rattlesnake Creek. There is nonprofit nonsense everywhere here, everywhere.
Okay. Now, when I first had you on and you had gone through like 990s, which are public documents that are posted online by the IRS that all nonprofits are supposed to be dealing with, you had mentioned, and this is over a year ago, you mentioned, well, KNYO was late on a filing, and when I mentioned it to our station manager, Bob, nobody's happy, when they find out their paperwork isn't compliant, but we got, into compliance, and we deal with such a small budget that if we were out of compliance, how much could we lose or be unaccounted for when our budget yearly is $12,000 to $15,000 or something that small? Well, can't be too much. But and then you went on to some other nonprofits, including like Mendocino County Public Broadcast and some more. But the one that's on the radar right now that we've been discussing
The
quite a bit.
mega nonprofit.
Yes. Is it the biggest, do you think?
I think it's the biggest.
Next to the hospital,
It's
or
the biggest nonprofit asset-wise, net asset-wise in Mendocino County.
And that's the Community
Foundation of Mendocino County.
Yeah.
Now they did change it. It used to be called Community Foundation, and they amended their articles to the Community Foundation.
But was it
Mendocino
always?
County.
But in the beginning, it was still of Mendocino County.
Right.
Also.
It was maybe it was Mendocino County Community Foundation. They changed. They made a big thing of registering their articles with the state. We're amending that. It's no longer the Community Foundation of Mendocino County or Mendocino County Community Foundation. It is the Community Foundation of Mendocino County, capital T. Right.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. You remember Sarah Palin? A few years back, decided to start her site, sarahpalin.com or something. Or was it, one of the late night shows put a "the" in front of it and just intercepted all the traffic.
Beware of the.
Yeah, beware of the.
The.
Yeah. Now, the bylaws that you found for the Community Foundation of Mendocino County mention. I believe you told me that they mentioned none of the money's supposed to really leave Mendocino County. Have those been amended since they've been a foundation or a nonprofit?
They have never been endorsed by the state. Now you can amend your bylaws all day long, but until you have file those with the state and have them endorsed, you haven't really done anything.
Okay.
And what the Community Foundation has done, first of all, I have it here somewhere. Hold on.
Okay. So, we're talking about the Community Foundation of Mendocino County. I've tried to apply for a very small $1,200 grant for KNYO. I went to a grant workshop. One of their people named Michelle Rich, I believe, hosted this workshop, and it was done at, there's a room between mental health and the clinic, basically, in town. It's like a multi-purpose room. And it was chair to chair. It was pretty full. There was very few seats. We even had to scrunch some tables and open up some more chairs. And what I did is I was telling you before the show, very few people were taking notes. Some were. Not everybody identified themselves, but I knew that there was somebody representing the theater and Point Arena looking for grant money. Somebody from Hospitality House, for God knows why, looking for more grant money. I was there representing probably the smallest nonprofit there. And I took a head count, and I took the number. They said, there's X amount of numbers, money available for this grant cycle. I took a head count, and I think I came up with like 4,800 or 4,900 if they were to just give an even amount to every person in the room. And when Michelle Rich first says, does anybody have any questions so far? I said, well, if you were to evenly distribute the grant money that's available to every person in the room by the current head count, we could all have like $4,900.
You were a problem in school, weren't you?
Yes, and, I was a bad problem. And so I explained, I'm seeking $1,200, so I would be glad to take my $1,200, and the rest of you can up your $4,900 by whatever the devising of that is. And as 2 or 3 people would leave in the middle of the workshop, then a few would come in. I would adjust my number, and I believe at the end of the workshop, it was still like $4,500, $4,600 per person if they evenly distributed. Now, in the end, I didn't get my $1,200, but Mendocino County Public Broadcast, our big red-headed ugly stepsister down there in Anderson Valley, which has a lot of nice people volunteering for them, yes, with a high-paid manager, and I believe they have a guy that gets paid to bring in underwriters or something. There's a few paid positions, but none of the
they hide their Form 90s from the board. Yeah.
Well, they got $5,000 from the Community Foundation for office space in Ukiah for the new news bureau that at this point I believe is still unused news space. So
good use of money.
It's interesting when I wonder what kind of language they used in their grant application to explain how this $5,000 was going to be used, because I wrote and I filled up down to the last word on every application box I added words or subtracted, and I made the language as mushy as possible on how this would improve all of our programmers' broadcasts and could help us be more self-sufficient for merely $1,200, which I could take $1,200 from under my underwear in my bedroom in cash, which is where I hide my cash. Nobody knows that. Now you know it. And I could just go buy that broadcasting board, but it's about principle. We have a lot of broadcasters. I'd like everybody to pitch in or try my hand at grants.
I want to get to the bottom of that, Joe. I want to find out why your grant application was declined by the Community Foundation of Mendocino County, because during that grant cycle, they sent a lot of money out of state, out of county and out of state.
Sure.
To people, to entities that were rich entities, filthy rich entities that had no business taking that money.
Sure.
And there's a lot of grant money that was not accounted for in the Form 990 that went out God knows where. So
Well, it didn't go to KNYO. I know that.
Well, yeah, we know that. And the thing was that, as you know, we had a meeting scheduled with Megan Allende
Sure.
in Point Arena tomorrow. She changed the dates around. And
Now,
then
did you
canceled.
set that up in Point Arena, or did she already have a meeting, or is this
No, I set that up with
Okay.
Peter Reimuller, who's a donor.
Okay.
And because he had some questions about where the money was going, why money was going out of state,
Sure.
because he had donated money that he thought was going to the South Coast Angels Fund, which seems to be a non-existent fund, or a fund they're not reporting. But back to your question, this
Sure.
this is
This is going to be hard to see on our cams in here.
The endorsed Articles of Incorporation dated 1993, and verbatim, the specific purposes corporation are to establish and increase flexible permanent funds that can be used at the discretion of the Foundation Board to meet needs within the area of the County of Mendocino and its service areas. Period.
Service areas. That's pretty loose.
Well, I don't think that Washington State or Florida or
Dollywood
Colorado or Utah or Los Angeles is a service area of Mendocino County.
No, because we could send all our transient population there.
Now,
Oh, no, I mean, I'm kind of mushing up subjects there, but
these are a couple of bylaw amendments that you can get from the Community Foundation website. And
Okay.
You'll notice that they have no endorsements on them. They've
Okay.
never sent them to the state. They've never been approved.
okay.
Now, they're going by these nonetheless, but the language is essentially the same in here, although it's ambiguous, that they're not supposed to, that what they're saying in the bylaws is that donors don't have control over the funds. You can't, they don't allow the donors to restrict the funds.
Yeah.
But Allende's defense of all this money going out of state was that it was the donors who were saying that I'm giving this money, but it has to go out of state, which makes no sense. No donor
Yeah.
in Mendocino County is going to donate money so it can go to a filthy rich nonprofit in Bainbridge Island, Washington, where the poverty rate's 6%, while here it's 20%. That makes no sense.
I thought it was higher than that here, but
Well, 20%. I mean,
not sure.
I think that's probably getting more real. Is the more the price
because
of
it has
wheat
to be,
drops.
it has to be pretty high here for us to get all the CBDG grants that we get. You know, there's levels to our income that
Yeah, 20%. You know, but here's a couple of charts I made off of 990s, and this is the way. It's not,
Now
you know,
I see
this
it's
is-
like a
it's a pie chart, right? This
Sure.
this is the Sonoma County, the Community Foundation of Sonoma, right?
okay.
And what you see here is $25 million over 1 year, and it's a pretty even split.
If it was a clock, it looks like it's about 35 minutes past the hour, and it's
Right.
a 42 to 58% split.
And most of the money is distributed to nonprofits. Now, they're not all in Sonoma County, but the Sonoma Foundation does not have a charter to distribute everything in Sonoma County.
Whereas the Mendocino Community
the
Foundation has
Community
a
Foundation
charter
does.
too. Okay.
This is what the Community Foundation distributes.
73% is remainder.
They put in the bank.
Okay.
Right?
And the blue is 10%. That's Mendocino County recipients.
That's what Mendocino. This is like $25 million over 8 years.
over 8 years.
Over 8 years. Okay. So it's a good average. So 10% of the 25 million is distributed.
What's the green? The 5%. Out of.
That's the out of state.
out of
Or I'm
state.
sorry, out of county. Okay.
And yellow is unidentified.
Unidentified.
But
In other words-
73%. So they're building a moat around the castle. I guess.
Well,
That's
no,
a lot of money to harbor if you're supposed to be distributing it in county to, propel services and, I don't know. Community Foundation of Mendocino County sounds like a foundation that's supposed to. I mean, they didn't give $186,000 to the Giving Garden at a hospitality house's 3 locations. I know that.
If you look at the big grants, and actually ran tapes of this stuff because you'd think that if you file a Form 990, somebody is paying attention and running a tape to make sure that the
Sure.
amounts on the 990 add up to the grants given, and they don't for the community. They do for the Sonoma Community Foundation, but
Okay.
for the Mendocino Community Foundation, they don't. They always come up short. But some of the grant recipients, I mean, the 6-figure grant recipients over 8 years in Mendocino County, there have only been 2 of them. And it's the City of Ukiah Skate Park,
Cool.
Okay.
Well, how much did the skate park get?
$102,000.
I wonder who financed. I mean, besides the fundraisers, I wonder how our skate park was financed. A CBDG grant, probably. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. And the other one was the Arts Council of Mendocino, got $100,000, and that was in 2011.
Do you know where the Arts Council of Mendocino is located?
No idea.
Okay.
But you look at the out-of-county payouts, and listen to this, okay? The Art Museum of Bainbridge. Bainbridge Island, Washington, is a super filthy rich place.
Okay.
$100,000.
Wow.
And that was in 2009. And 2009, California Kids Healthcare in Los Angeles.
But at the Community Foundation in the halls, are there pretty pictures from that art facility? Did they send them a pretty picture and trade for that $100,000?
You'd hope they got a thank you card or something.
Yeah, a really artistic one, right?
Same year, California Kids Healthcare, $113,000.
Okay.
You go down to 2013, Bainbridge Island Museum of Art, $100,000.
Again.
Bainbridge Island Museum of Art. What about the Mendocino Art Center?
Sure.
The Dollywood Foundation.
Or what about Art Explorers?
No kidding.
Art Explorers, which was a hot button topic when Measure U was happening. A lot of the social services that were not even in the central business district by a half a block were being corralled to lobby against Measure U because they would have to move, even though they didn't.
Right.
So there was some fishy stuff going on there with the Go For Bragg people and the No on Measure U people. And I know Measure U was poorly written. All that's, water under the bridge. But the Art Explorers, boy, they could use $100,000. They could build a new facility.
Dollywood Foundation, $100,000.
Now, Dollywood Foundation came up on my radar the other day because I buy electrical retail here and there. And one of the counter girls, Christine, at the Too Short sales shop at Fort Bragg Electric, where I do a lot of business, she's very helpful. And she says, Dollywood, that's a good foundation. They give books out to kids, and you can assign like 60 books in a year to kids. And these, Now, I looked at their web page, and I see that there's regions. Like you can pick a region on the map that includes Alaska. I mean, there's a lot of regions, and then you can enter in how many books per region you want to sponsor, for instance. Like the web page is kind of based on this. It's kind of like, it reminds me of little old ladies being harassed on the phone to donate to UNICEF or something. I don't know why. It's got this weird aura to it, like, out of the blue, I'm going to sign up and donate 100 books to this section in Alaska through the Dollywood Foundation.
Let me tell you what the budget for those
You gave me some numbers when I brought it up to you.
And I got it from the Form 990 from the Dollywood Foundation.
Okay.
Okay, don't take, the Community Foundation's word for it. Yeah, the Dollywood Foundation has good intentions. Last year, they spent $60,000 on books. They took in $10 million, and they spent $60,000 on books.
Now, I called Christine back right after, because when I left the Fort Bragg Electric shop, I'm driving down the road, called you and said, hey, the Dollywood Foundation gives out books. And then you gave me some of these numbers. So I called Too Short shop. I said, give me the Too Short counter. Christine answers. I go, the Dollywood Foundation takes in $10 million and only puts out like $50,000. She goes, what? Just thought she wanted to know that because she was under the influence that that's a good cause.
Well, not only that, you look at the income inequality for the employees versus the senior management, and you break that down, and their executive pay is $200,000.
Okay.
Their staff pay is $60,000. Okay, that's
all staff pay is $60,000.
Average staff pay.
So the person in the mailroom that sends out a couple armloads of books makes $60,000, and the person managing the fund makes $200,000.
Well, that's the average. So the person in the mailroom is probably on the lower end of the scale. And
how many could there be?
Not that many.
I mean, when I think 60,000, I mean, there's one guy that does a lot of eBay traffic. I won't mention his name, but sometimes when I go into the post office, he's like dumping packages, picking up stuff, and one time he was bragging. He's like, "Yeah, I've done like $60,000 of postal service this year, doing his eBay sales." This is a local guy. One guy.
Dollywood got some publicity last year because there were some fires in I think it's Severy County, Tennessee.
Okay.
And a lot of like the big fires here that clean people out. And there were a bunch of indictments that people had defrauded the Dollywood Foundation by making false claims on their losses.
Yeah.
So
wow.
even if the Dollywood Foundation has the best of intentions, a foundation can still get ripped off.
If you were going to donate to the like Lake County or Sonoma County fire funds, where would you put your dollar?
Not the community foundation.
Me neither. One thing, like we did a benefit at the Inglenook Community Center, formerly the Grange, now the Guildhall. Did a fire benefit, and we had one good angel investing donor, but a lot of people gave over and above the door price, and we raised $3,113. And I think it went to the Savings Bank of Mendocino County Fund.
I think the food bank. If I was to give to a charity around here to help people, it would probably be the food bank. You know.
So if it was for the fire in Sonoma County, you could contact like the Sonoma County, like their food bank, for instance.
I think so. I think that's the quickest path to get most.
I wonder how the community found it, or how Dollywood, to give out funds for the fire people, did they just cut individuals' checks, or did they go through a service?
No, I think they cut individual checks.
Jeez, where was the line?
Exactly. The other one.
Not that I want to be a jerk and take fire money that's supposed to be somebody else's, but if you're going to get exploited like that, then you deserve to be exploited like that, I guess.
The other big grant recipient from the Community Foundation was Islandwood. And this is like a summer camp for rich kids on Bainbridge Island, $100,000. So I looked up Islandwood.
Okay. Islandwood.
I know.
It's kind of generic.
Islandwood. Da, 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 da. So,
but what happens on Islandwood stays on Islandwood.
Here's Islandwood, okay? There's something called a cost to raise a dollar, right? And it's the revenue that comes in versus what goes out.
Which wine song is really on the radar for that?
Islandwood takes in $10 million and they distribute $500,000, right?
$10 million. So that's like $9.50 per dollar.
It's outrageous, whatever it is.
Yeah, some crazy.
But their income inequality is even worse. Their executive pay is $337,000.
Wow.
Their staff pay is $23,000.
Wow, that's a ratio even worse than the last place we talked about.
It's not as bad as the Community Foundation.
So the Community Foundation gives to Islandwood?
Yes.
Okay.
Now you look at the Community Foundation, okay?
And this is the Community Foundation of Mendocino County, that in their bylaws say that all their funds are supposed to come back.
That are too embarrassed to show up for meetings and discuss this.
You know, I'm supposed to take my wife to a doctor's appointment in Santa Rosa tomorrow, and made a couple of phone calls to see if I could adjust that and work around and adjust, the whole doctor's appointment schedule just to go out of my way to this Point Arena thing. Now I'm going to take her tomorrow. But, and they readjusted the meeting once and then canceled. Thanks, guys. We have jobs too.
Here's the income inequality at the Community Foundation.
Okay.
Their average executive pay is $80,000. Their average staff pay is $17,000.
Wow.
That really stinks.
That's like less than McDonald's wage.
Yeah. Now, also, you look at, there's like 3 pages of grant recipients. And there's no detail to them, as you can see. Okay, that's it.
Just the listings of the recipients, but no numbers.
But if you look at the way, bear with me.
Okay. 107.7 KNYO, having a good time here, talking about nonprofit organizations. Specifically, this evening, the Community Foundation in Mendocino County. We were kind of shined off of a meeting. We're going to go to Point Arena tomorrow, and now we're not. Which I guess kind of saves us some travel time. Would have been interesting.
Mixed blessing. It would have been more of a complete story, and I think it would have been fair under the circumstances for them to at least show up.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, they do deserve an article this week, which will be titled "The Harder They Fall." This is the Sonoma County Community Foundation. This pile.
Okay, that's a big pile.
These are the grant recipients. Okay.
That's like a half-inch ream of paper.
Right. This is what should be in the Community Foundation of Mendocino County is Form 990. Everything is accounted for here, every single penny.
Sure.
Where you have these big gaps missing in the Community Foundation of Mendocino County. And I had a bunch of questions for them because Peter Reimeller had questions and he wanted me to ask the questions. And I don't really get to ask the questions because we couldn't have a meeting.
Can you tell us any more about Peter, or is he kind of reclusive on that side?
I don't really know that much about Peter. I've conversed with him a couple of times.
But he is a community, or was Community Foundation donor?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if he'd be interested in making an angel investment, not a big one, but a small one into KNYO at some point. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know that
idea balloon
either.
Because I'd love him to divert his donations to that wash bucket over to ours. You know.
I don't think that it would be a worse investment than it was in the Community Foundation of Mendocino
Well,
County.
I believe that an investment in KNYO doesn't need to be very big to make some vastly great changes in some of our on-air production. And we have a pretty low-budget studio downtown. In my home studio, well, I mean, for my budget, it's a lot, but on a professional broadcast budget, it's still pretty small.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much to. Adding $1,000 to KZYX is a sneeze in about 10 minutes, and $1,000 to KNYO is like, oh my gosh, we can change some of our light bulbs.
The $1,200 that you were asking for would have helped the station out. It would have helped you out because a lot of these expenses come out of your pocket.
Sure. I was planning on buying this exact same broadcast board that you can see on the webcam. It's an Allen & Heath 14-channel board. Handles 4 microphones, has 2 dedicated phone inputs with adapters, so people doing our downtown shows could actually field phone calls, perform a swap shop program, or call in interviews, which I know we can do calls downtown now, but the fluidity of being able to bring it up on the fader like this board, I think it would have really enhanced shows. And some broadcasters don't really care. Some of them have real primitive shows, and some do. It's kind of a mixed bag. We're all different personalities on this station.
It seems to me that if you're training somebody up, if you bring somebody new in, that you would want equipment like this as opposed to stuff that's kludged and patched together.
Yeah. I would agree there. Yeah. Well, there's a reason I do my show from here, because I know my gear and I feel real comfortable in the environment I've built to do this. Frankly, I really miss working for my grandfather at KDAC back in the 90s, just because our old Gates Statesman board with these great big knobs for pots instead of faders, it was a beautiful old board, and you could beat on that thing. You could slam switches, and you could just beat. It was bulletproof. It was just a bulletproof piece of equipment.
I remember
they don't make them like that anymore.
A tour of the KDAC radio studio back in the mid-1960s when I was in Cub Scouts.
Wow.
Would that have been when your grandpa was there?
Late 60s. It might have been before him. Marty Moylanen, who's a ham radio operator friend, Vietnam veteran, who still lives around the coast here, he did a Boy Scout tour there. Might have been the same era.
Could have been.
I don't know how many Boy Scout
tours together.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know how old. I don't know how old he is now. Are you a Vietnam serving 8 year younger?
Nope. I just missed it by that much.
Okay. Well, you guys are probably a few years off on that, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my question is, because these documents are public,
sure,
and sooner or later the public is going to figure this betrayal out, and that's the way I feel about all this money. We're looking at millions of dollars leaving the county for no good reason.
Sure.
Right? And it's like the way it's being hidden from the public. Obviously, the Community Foundation, people who are running the Community Foundation are ashamed of it, and they should be. So why were they doing it in the first place?
Like that mountain climber, the Japanese
because
guy.
It's there.
Yeah. Because it's there. Well, what's the next step in this process? Or is there a process? Do you have a direction to go with this?
All I do is, I don't write call to action pieces. All I really want to do is report what I find and then move on to the next nonprofit in my wheel. It was just these people came up, the Community Foundation, the people who mismanage it, are the people, this is the organization that came up in my wheel.
Okay.
And so, we're coming up on the Art Center, Mendocino Art Center, and the Hospital Foundation, and KZYX again. So everybody gets their turn in the barrel. And all I do is report on it, and what I'm finding is they're actually getting better. The good news about the Community Foundation, because as you know, I was on your show here a couple of years ago, I think. First time.
Well, a year and a half, maybe. I'm not really sure when the first one was.
Yeah, it was around that time.
There's a YouTube video of it, I know that.
Yeah. And so I started reporting, and I started reporting on the Community Foundation, and it was that stink that Peter Reimuller, called me on.
Sure.
That right after that, I noticed on their Form 990 that their in-county donations went up and their out-of-county donations went down. Okay. So I think that these, even though a lot of these pieces are really despised, they're actually doing some good. I see them doing some good elsewhere. I see policies being reversed. The people at KZYX, Mendocino County Public Broadcasting, pretty much I wouldn't say rescinded, but condemned their own policy of hiding the Form 990s from their board members. They admitted it was wrong in a public meeting. Whether or not they follow through on that.
Would you consider yourself blacklisted from that station?
Oh, definitely.
Join Marco's club.
Definitely. I would consider you blacklisted from, the Community Foundation of Mendocino County.
Probably.
That's why I want to find
Because I asked them for $1,200.
I know. So why not? Other than, you were broadcasting the truth about the Community Foundation of Mendocino County.
I was a little bummed. I kind of didn't expect it because, I don't count my chickens till they're hatched, But then I realized that they award Mendocino County Public Broadcast $5,000, which is about 4 times.
Which doesn't appear in their Form 990s, by the way. They don't list
KZYX.
KZYX is a recipient.
Isn't listed on the Community Foundation or at KZYX?
On the Community Foundation. KZYX doesn't have to list, or they don't have to publish that listing of their grant makers. But the grant, I should say the grant maker.
Well, so that 5,000 that went to KZYX that's not reported would be in the yellow part of the graph.
Exactly.
All right, but now
it would be in the unreported part of the graph.
Which color is that? I thought that was yellow.
Well, I guess.
All right, yeah, let's look at it. So,
yeah, you're right. It's the yellow part of the graph.
So the yellow part, in 8 years, we know that 5,000 of what ends up being 11% is in the wash in the yellow part of the graph.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the KZYX are going to be in here.
Well, they could have given us $1,200 and not reported it.
They could have given themselves $1,200. They could have had a big Coke fest. Who knows?
Pizza party. I don't know.
Whatever.
Okay.
That's why you report it. That's why the Sonoma Foundation is growing. That's why they can pay their employees.
I think at that grant workshop, I think one of my other comments, because I made like 3 or 4 comments. I think people were getting sick of me there too. I think one of my comments was like, Michelle, I'll buy you lunch if I can talk to you more about my grant application. That didn't go anywhere.
I remember meeting with them before I was on your show back 2 years ago, and my discussion with them, we met at the bakery in Mendocino, and I met with it was Suzanne Norgard and this Allende person.
Okay.
Right, the both of them. And what I was saying was that wouldn't it be nice if you guys could help nonprofits to raise more money by getting their Form 990s together, by getting their bylaws and their articles together? And they kind of reluctantly did that, but the feeling that I got from them was, this guy is trouble.
Yeah.
And sure enough, I get it through the back channel, through Peter Reimold. They're telling everybody, ignore this Scott Peterson guy. Don't go near him. Nobody ever pays attention to this guy. Which is one way, that's pushback. That's a way to try to...
Well, I get some of that. Some people say that about you on the Fort Bragg Wellness page with 538 members, but I usually tell people there, and you'll see my comments occasionally where Scott does have hot links. If you don't like what's there, open up the links and just fact check it, because the fact checking of your you claim not to be a journalist but a storyteller.
That's all.
So in the story, if you think that there's a line of text that you disagree with, usually there's one word in blue that you can click, and automatically a web page opens up with a document that either has the quote from the person or a legal form
filed under penalty of perjury.
Yeah. Most of the time there's something like that attached to it.
I like that thing that you found in the Advocate, that full page ad in the Advocate.
Oh, geez.
Which is total malarkey. If you don't want fake news, you need it from a trusted news source, like the Advocate.
And the funny thing is how many people have huge basketball-sized afros on the Mendocino coast? Like, the demographic doesn't fit, and we have people of all different. We're pretty much mostly Spanish and Caucasian here, but there are African American people around here. But it's an African American woman looking at a smartphone with a great big hair. That doesn't look like anybody around here. She looks like, I'm from LA or something. And it's, do you trust your news source? How do you know? And it has little bullet points about it. And at the bottom, it says the Advocate and Beacon. And last week, or the week when I first saw it, and this isn't the free paper, not the paid paper, so I didn't pay for it. It shows up in my mailbox, and I always open it and flip through to go, okay, before it goes into the trash. I always flip through to see if there's I like to see what the bargain of the month at Coast Hardware is, to see if it's a tape measure I like, and I look at some stuff. and I see the entire back page. That's a lot of real estate. How much does it cost to buy an ad for the entire back page?
That's the beginning of the end. When the Advocate and the Beacon have to burn a full page or even a quarter page on an advertisement for themselves.
Yeah, and this week it is on a quarter page inset in the paper because thankfully Mendo Mill bought like a third of a page ad for the back, and then they had something about solar for renters, an article that spilled over on the back page, which is, I guess, informative.
You'd never see that in the New York Times. An ad for the New York Times in the New York Times.
How do you know if your news is real?
Yeah.
Check the source.
Oh, please.
Is social media reliable? Well, you know what? I can find cats doing backflips on Facebook, but I can also be objective, and I can also read Al Jazeera articles that really cut through our news in the United States.
Well, the ad has a point, and that's that trusted sources.
Sure.
It's not just what you read; it's where what you read comes from.
Too bad they didn't name any at the bottom of the article.
The Community Foundation was running a regular column in the Advocate and the Beacon for a time.
Okay.
Suzanne Norgard was writing these pieces, and then Megan Allende was writing pieces also. And that was before I found that they were, sending huge chunks of cash out of the county. I hope that they can, publish an editorial addressing the huge amounts of money that they're sending out of the county, so their donors know that they're sending huge chunks of cash out of the county and out of the state.
Well, I guess one way to figure out how much an entire back page on the Advocate would cost would be to ask the board at the hospital about their propaganda that they paid them to print. Say, hey, what was your rate? Or just ask them for the rate. It's interesting that the hospital board has been using like the Beacon, and I haven't read the articles because I don't typically pay to not be informed. I like to get my non-information for free. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
I know it's
exactly.
75 cents, but if I'm going to spend $1, I'll pick up the AVA. I can pick up if I want to learn about events, the Coast Packet is free. That's got to hurt. The Coast Packet is riddled with ads. That's ad dollars in print, and it's a free paper.
I buy
I dig it.
the Mendocino Beacon for the same reason that I might buy a National Enquirer. If they had a local version of National Enquirer, I'd probably buy that before I would buy the Beacon.
They do. It's the AVA.
Well, that's true. I don't get the.
I mean,
get the subscription
on some
version.
level, occasionally,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, I do like the subscription version of the AVA because that's the way to get Malcolm McDonald the fastest.
Okay.
And some interesting letters and some interesting articles because I think he's the only local reporter. I mean, Rex Gressett, of course, and occasionally Judy Valido.
Yeah. It's funny because I'm retiring this XP server and going to this Windows 10 box for my KNYO uploads. That computer was gifted to me by Judy. One time I said, anybody want to get rid of old computers? I want to convert them into servers for KNYO broadcasters.
By Judy
Valido.
Really?
So she pulled up at Rossi's and she gave me a computer and a monitor, and with no hard drive. She kept her hard drive, and I put a different hard drive in it.
She's a good soul.
Yeah, and she's a good egg, for calling people out at city council meetings and attending and watching.
I respect her work tremendously.
The funniest thing I've seen in media recently was watching the city council and all parties at the dais talk about marijuana policy and local regulations the other night. Hilarious. Just hilarious.
I missed that.
Because, you can say, should we limit it to 6 plants? And then for the next 20 minutes they're talking about plant size, space, smell, and stuff. And I thought, 6 plants? Fine with me. I'll buy a house in town. And I'll make sure the pots are really, really big, and I grow them as big as freaking trees, and I'll fill my entire backyard with 6 plants. That's going to really piss off the code enforcement people when they come in and go, you're not out of compliance. That's only 6 plants. And I have a lot of questions, and I'm freaking out because I'm in my pajamas doing my radio production, the other night, and I'm watching the meeting, and I thought this was the one meeting where I should have jumped into the public comment. I really should have been downtown. Eric Dwyer was there. He spoke quite a few times, and he messaged me on Facebook and says, you should come to the next public safety meeting. So I'd like to know how the city wastewater treatment plant, let's say 20 new houses fire up with 12 light grows in their garage, and they don't know how many plants are in a grow, and I'm thinking 6 under each light, sometimes 8 depending on the rows. So 12 lights, 72 to 90 give or take plants. Now if they have drain trays, every time you harvest and you go and rinse out the containers, the drain trays lots of times have a thick, eighth-inch layer of like calcium deposits from the nutrients and from the bone meal.
Right.
How does the city wastewater treatment plant take care of the new influx of calcium deposits that has to come through it? I don't know how much it would be on a full level. I don't really know. Also,
as the price of marijuana drops, the more the burden is on the infrastructure, because you're going to have more lights to generate more pounds, right?
Which means electric car sales are boom. Right. Because you got to get that good PG&E bill.
But still, I mean, you run more lights. You're running hotter.
Sure.
Are you not necessarily going to boost your panel, or just cheap out?
Oh, my phone's vibrating, but I'm not going to get it. Oh, it's a new text message, just in case if it's radio related. Nope, it's my old friend Jim Wagner. 45 minutes to an hour. I should tell him yes, but not at the moment. Hopefully he's tuned in. Now, this friend has been in radio since my KDAC days.
Jim Wagner.
Not relation.
Right.
We used to walk our dogs down the train tracks and go out in the woods and hike a lot, with our dogs and talk radio. He would get off at the morning shift at like 9 or 10 after the swap shop program. We go walk the dogs. I go about my day, go mountain biking. Then I would go on the air from like 4 or 5 till sign off. All these years later, though, Hoot over at KUNK at the Skunk FM, broke his leg. He had a big injury. Right at the point where they fired Lindy Peters, then Hoot got hurt. And they were desperate for a morning man. So I got Jim Wagner to come over here. They got him a motel room and put him on the air for mornings for 3.5 weeks or something. So it was a temporary job.
Yeah, but that's good.
Yeah, it's cool. I wish I could get him more involved in local radio and stuff. But back to the marijuana thing, when it comes down to residential, there's a lot of points they missed, and some that I believe the council, before making any decisions, needs to continue the discussion. Even if people are like, we need a decision, continue it. Because to make an ill-informed decision could be catastrophic. Because, for one, if you want to regrade your sidewalk in town or expand your driveway, there's permits and issues. And as soon as you go to a grow, and if there's one person that's an employee that's not your living in the house family member there, doesn't the county code kick in where you have to have one ADA approved parking space and an ADA bathroom? That means now you got to remodel the inside of your house.
Hey, that's good for you.
Well, I guess so, but I'm not a licensed contractor. I run around like a cowboy, getting in trouble all the time. But for the contracting community, that is a good thing for remodelers. But at the same time, let's say in 10 years, nobody wants to grow and these houses are up for sale. How many people want to have an ADA bathroom when all these homes are on the market now? Are we going to turn into a retirement community and all the retirees are going to buy into these homes that have the parking space, the ADA bathroom, and then they're all moldy in the garage?
Well, I think that homeowners are rethinking use as the price of marijuana drops.
I think so too.
Yeah, what I want to know is the rebranding of the dam of the mill pond as a beach berm.
Yeah,
I want to know more about that, because I saw George Reinhardt doing a thing at City Council.
Sure,
calling a spade a diamond, right?
Okay,
and because that berm is what is holding back.
The leaching
thousands of tons of dioxin-laden sludge,
like the sludge from the washers from the smokestacks or something like that.
Yeah, dioxins and PCBs and what do you call it? TC, all the nasty stuff in the world.
THC.
Yeah, well, that's different. But calling it a beach berm just kind of minimizes its purpose.
Sure.
And it sort of helps GP out from walking away from this mess. So I object to that, and I think that from now on, somebody at City Council ought to say, whenever that's called a beach berm, somebody said, hey, wait a minute, objection, it's called a dam.
Okay.
George. It's a dam, it's not a berm. It's there for a purpose. It's there to hold toxins in because you let GP walk away from this toxic waste mess.
It's likely I'll see George Reinhardt at the Englewood Community Center because we have a musical potluck coming up on the 20th, which is, it's, I believe they might sell drinks there because Jim from Nello's Market tends the bar and, all proceeds go into the building fund for the hall. But it's a potluck, and we have maybe 6 different musical acts. My wife and I are R&J Services business. We provide sound and lighting with our new modern sound system that's all portable. And then the next week on the 27th, we have a group that just named themselves Stable Genius.
Gotta love that.
Yeah, and it's Keter Stewart. His dad wrote Ghost Riders in the Sky. You know, he's got a heritage
kidding.
of music.
Wow.
And then Gene Parsons, of course, you know, KOZT will tell you, our local's finest, even though he's from Southern California. He hates it when they say that. And my buddy Lee Ryder up north, who I just installed a solar array. Well, I had some guys do the roof rails and do the panel install, and I did all the inverter stuff for it, so it was interesting helping a client with solar. But it's kind of a country trio called Stable Genius is going to be playing on the 27th up there. We want to put a roof on that building at some point, and that's going to be like an expensive roof. There's some dry rot around the eaves, and you know, who knows when you pull that old roof off how much plywood or skip sheeting has to be replaced. So
You want a capital campaign.
yeah, so we're doing one little potluck event at a time, you know, to see if we can raise money, you know. An angel investor. If this guy Peter doesn't want to invest in the community foundation, I know the Inglenook Community Center will take his money.
I think, here's what I think. I think that if you want a grant, go to the Sonoma Community Foundation. Don't go to the Mendocino Community Foundation. They're worthless. Okay, they're not going to give you money. They're going to burn up your time. Okay, and then any money they get, God knows where it's going to go.
Maybe I should call them and have them email me the application. Just another trial balloon. Try my hand at grant writing again.
Go to the Sonoma Community Foundation because their grants go out of the area. Their grants go everywhere.
Yeah,
They've got money and they actually manage it well. They pay their people decently. One of the things that concerns me about the community foundation is that they don't even pay their managers. Like their $80,000 a year is not fair market for an executive director. It's like half of market what it should be. Pay peanuts, get monkeys.
that's for a nonprofit. That's interesting because our city manager, when you count all benefits, is over $200,000.
That's like the going rate for executive level people, good executive level people. I mean, Suzanne Norgard, who was there for 20 years, maybe 15, 20 years, she was started out at $50,000 a year, and she worked her way up to $100,000 a year, and then retired.
Yeah,
But I mean, that's not market rate for that position. It's way below market rate. So if these people actually started managing their own operation well, their own nonprofit well, they get paid more than they should.
the joy of a garage studio. I hear the door opening and closing out there.
I hear that
Hey, the
too.
dogs haven't ran in yet.
Hey, there's laundry running.
I know. Pretty much, it's at some point I'm going to put a nice little sound curtain over that. I might even just install, I'd like to put a sliding door, but I don't have the money. I need to apply for a personal grant.
I think that you would be delighted. And I'll help you write the grant to the Sonoma Foundation.
You know who else offered to help me write a grant, which is interesting. It's kind of a cross-media issue. Marianne McGee, who, between her and Terry in reporting along, I guess, and with Malcolm also reporting for the AVA, there's kind of, even though they're two different entities, the information really gets on the table with Mary Ann's write-up about the Mendocino Coast District Hospital meetings.
Yeah.
And they do a really good job. She offered in a message once that she could help me because she's used to do some professional grant writing.
This is a huge community service. And if you look at, there are a lot of for-profit, or I should say individual entities that qualify for grants because you're doing a community service. And this is coming out of your pocket. And that's not fair. So I think it would be interesting to write a grant application to the Sonoma County Foundation, the same format that you use for the Community Foundation of Mendocino County, and see what happens. I'll bet you get the grant.
It's interesting too, as a community service, I think I read this when I had you here with Paul McCarthy of MSP, and where the dogfight show.
The diatribe, yeah.
Yeah, so KNYO has a mission statement that you can look at. It says About Us. There's a tab on our page. So just to keep in continuity with that, because I've caught some heat for having some of my guests talking about subjects like we've talked about today. To establish and own and operate an educational, nonprofit, community-supported micro radio broadcast system. Done. That's established. Mission statement number 2, to encourage and provide micro radio facilities to promote and aid the creative skills and cultural welfare of the community.
Done.
Number 3, to provide instruction and opportunities for the public to learn broadcasting skills, including audio production skills. Now, we don't get very many people coming in going, I'd like to learn radio, and I'd really like some of these Mendocino, low-power student radio people, when they graduate, if they're stuck in the community, but still got that radio bug, come see us at KNYO, because we'd love to have you guys rap show, metal show, country show.
It's probably not going to be a place where
do.
people are vaping.
I'm not sure. Mission statement number 4, to distribute news and other public information affecting the community. And whether you like it or not, all the information we brought here affects the community,
Totally.
I think.
Look, this is the Community Foundation of Mendocino County.
That.
You know,
yeah,
you're
we
looking
also
at
went on
$25 million over 8 years that is,
Sure.
gone.
And our
God
10
knows
minutes
where.
of going off on marijuana policy at council meetings, that was, anyway. It was an interesting meeting to go back and watch. I thought half the time I wanted to hear the Benny Hill theme in the back. Because I'm like, what? You guys don't have a clue. We don't know how many lights you can fit in an X. Well, go to YouTube and watch some videos. It's not that hard. Anyway, I have to keep complete client confidentiality, but I can give them some numbers for sure.
May you live in interesting times, and these are interesting times. The thing that bothered me, there was a thing on television the other night. It was, The Prophet. You ever watch The Prophet?
Well, I don't watch TV.
It's this guy who moves from business to business and helps business people redo their business. He actually invests money in their business and helps them redo their business.
Nice.
It's kind of like a makeover, extreme makeover for business, right? He goes to Humboldt County.
Okay.
And does this special on the marijuana business. Of course, he interviews a lot of people. He doesn't actually put any money in because he knows better.
They have the money.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But
I mean, if they're doing it right.
he took a statement that I really took umbrage to from a law
Okay.
enforcement guy who said that, because he asked me, he said, well, what's the infrastructure like around here? What are these entities? And he didn't say nonprofit, but that's what he meant. What shape are they in? And the deputy or the sheriff, whatever he was, said, oh, they're in great shape. They get hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I just went, BS, because I know what's happening in Humboldt County. It's the same shape as Mendocino County. Every place in the Emerald Triangle is underwater, nonprofit-wise.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, I should start, yeah. It's funny because you don't make money in small grows anyway. So if they're going to regulate around the city of Fort Bragg for residential, typically a 2-car garage, like if this studio room was removed, you fit about 12 lights in it, 72 to 90 plants, depending on how you make the cut. If you do it right, you could probably make some money. If you don't have an electric car, you're going to give a whole lot of money to PG&E. Anything less than that dozen lights in a double garage size, or if you have a greenhouse that takes up probably the whole backyard, because outdoor is a lower grade typically, it's kind of in the wash if you want to make some good money. The people that are professional will basically tell you, go big or go home.
Yeah.
You got to have strength in numbers.
Right.
If you're going to accept 1,000 or 1,900 a pound or something ridiculous, you got to have some big numbers.
In a soft
And that's
market,
not going to
you
happen.
can't really invest in something like that,
Yeah.
in infrastructure, even maintenance, for God's sake.
Yeah.
Because
Also,
the price is dropping.
I know that in certain areas and communities, when you drive up, when you get within a block or two of a school, you'll see this entering a drug-free school zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really hear the council the other night talk about if you're going to open up these parcels, residential, and issue permits for, residential, are you going to identify school zones and zone the map around some of those community zones or not? I don't remember that language coming up, and that might be an important issue because, what if I buy a house and I load the garage and put a greenhouse in it and I'm a stone's throw from Dana Gray?
But
I'm legal.
Thing, yeah.
Yeah, stone's throw. Oh my gosh, the puns and the unheard puns or the puns. I can't tell you how many times. This meeting is dragging on. Whatever. There was so many puns in the city council meeting, whether they were caught or not. I was in stitches. I was laughing at it, doing my radio production out here in my pajamas, typing away, going, they're missing the point on this, they're missing the point on that. And I'd hear another pun, and I'm just in tears. I'm laughing at the language, and it's hilarious.
It really is.
Yeah. I have to thank, though, Mike Similino, he doesn't go by Chim, he's Sim. Cue ball. Says, the water in Fort Bragg is typically about a 7 on the pH, so if a grower's looking for a 6.8 or, has a target, depending on your nutrients and what you want to do, you don't have to do a whole lot of pHing, but when they did talk about water and treatment and stuff, if I go to the public safety meeting, I have leftovers from a grow I took down across my driveway from a neighbor. He passed away. Had a garage grow, a rock throw from me, a stone's throw, and I picked up all his nutrients to recycle it in my garden, but I've got containers of pH up and pH down. So, well, here's a couple elements that you will see in a typical grow room. You'll also see a jug full of bone marrow, or there's some bloom type additives that, just like at your normal farm and garden shop, have like the 3 numbers for the nitrite, or I don't know nothing about nitrogen and all that stuff. I know that between my fish aquaponics garden, there's a difference between nitrates and nitrites, and the compost of having a worm bed changes the water after the plants use it to where the fish like it again. It's kind of a cycle. It's complex, and I hate science. I like fish and I like growing in aquaponics, but the science, I'm like, blah, 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 blah.
The word that on the street that I hear about the marijuana business, there are a lot of people sitting on a lot of weed right now.
That's true.
And that's going to affect the price sooner or later. That means that these people are living off of their savings, and sooner or later, somebody has to sell all of a sudden, and that's going to drop the price. And it's probably going to be everybody all at once. It'll be a price war.
Yeah. Well, I thought my days of wiring and doing electrical work for very large grows was over, and who knows, every time I finish a project or work for one of these confidential clients out in the middle of nowhere, I think this is probably going to be my last one because of the market. They're going to be shrinking, and I've actually taken quite a few of them apart that, the people own 3 parcels and decide we're going to shrink down to 1 for market reasons. Who knows? My phone might ring again. I know Fort Bragg Electric's done grow rooms, and North Coast Plumbing and Heating, NCR&E, Refrigeration Electric, they've done them. Some of these companies, they don't like to do them necessarily. The employees don't care. Here's the load, here's what you need to do, pull this wire. Those guys work by the hour, the boss gets a check, there's a bill, there's a bid. It's just work.
Well, dope was a great economic bridge when timber and fishing collapsed.
Well, and anybody that goes into the county office, they used to have a big black binder, and you could look at current permits while you're sitting there waiting in line. Now it's on a computer. But when I would get an electrical permit, for instance, and I was waiting in line, I would flip through all the electrical service changes. You have to have a county permit because the county inspector tags the panel before PG&E turns you on. Every roofer gets a permit for the most part, because that's a high-profile thing where you could get caught without a permit because you're right on top of the roof. So you'll see Dunlap Roofing, for instance. You'll see Redwood Roofers. You'll see Fort Bragg Electric. What you don't see is all these Class K buildings being built. Then drive over to Rossi's and look at how many big 4x4 trucks are leaving with building materials.
Yeah.
And our city people think that tourism is the backbone of our community.
Yeah.
Well, we're running out of time. We're at 5:56. I see my broadcast clock says 5:59. It lies. Any closing comments then about the Community Foundation? This was fun. We kind of strayed a little, but
well, this is not an attack on the foundation.
Well, we did some fact checking.
This is not an attack on nonprofits in general or specifically. It is, however, a revelation on how nonprofit predators are the same as pedophiles in my book. And I'm not calling the people who are mismanaging the foundation predators or pedophiles, but you guys got to wake the hell up. The people who are running this place, and hold on a second.
If you could give money to a nonprofit that you feel is above board and legitimate, do you have any targets? I would say please donate to KNYO. The Novio Radio Project is be glad to take
I think the
check.
food bank.
Okay, my mom would say the food bank too. She's a volunteer there.
These are the people on the board of the Community Foundation: Greg Nelson, Wynn Bowen, Paula Cohen, Judith Bailey, Gail Green, A.R. Buck Gantner, Katie Gibbs, Monty Hill, Jim King, Jim Paul, Orion Walker, and Kathy Wiley. All you guys got to take notice and clean this mess up.
Kathy Wiley is with the Community Foundation?
Yeah, she's on the board.
I had her son play drums at KNYO once, do some live music.
Who's her son?
The Wiley kid. Anyway, his group is called Han Solo.
But you guys got to get your head out of the sand. You got to stop this outflow of money from Mendocino County.
Or change your bylaws. Change the bylaws that say we're going to send the money all over the place.
Be straight with your donors.
There you go.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty legitimate, the whole being straight with the donor thing. And with that, I guess it's time to conclude. This is 107.7 KNYO LP. Time is 5:58.